A soul is a unit of consciousness. It is not separated from the totality of consciousness. It's a shadow. The totality of consciousness remains total at all times. But the first screen that gives individuation to that experience makes us feel we have a soul. Soul is the first screen through which the light of consciousness is passing. The second screen is the mind. The mind is a very wonderful machine. It's such a good screen, it creates time and space. It creates beginning, middle and end. It creates here and there. This thing enables the soul to cast a shadow on a screen with time frame. And when you have a time frame, then you have something very unique, which is called the law of karma. What is karma? Karma means action and reaction. That there is a cause and there is an effect. This cause and effect is only possible if there is time and space. So the second screen is very wonderful and powerful, that it creates time and space, cause and effect, karma, action and reaction, and makes it a permanent show outside. Because when you start with cause and effect, then every cause leads to an effect, and every effect becomes a cause for further effect. Therefore, it becomes an unending cycle. The law of karma is so interesting that it is not one unit that you can play once and it's over. Karma never ends. Every time you act or have an intention to act, you're creating a reaction, and the reaction leads to further action, and therefore it's an unending thing. The soul, which is a unit of consciousness, having created a shadow, created a show on an outside screen of time and space and karma, then makes it further interesting by putting through a third screen called the screen of the sense perceptions. That means it divides the show that is going on into that which you can see, you can hear, you can touch, you can taste and smell. So these five senses are a further division. It's another screen through which the light of consciousness is passing. But they are all throwing an image outside, and we are so enamored, so attached to the images outside, we forget how they are taking place, and we get involved in the drama outside and totally forget the source from where it is happening. One Swamiji once told me a very good example. He said that there was a king in India who had a very peaceful kingdom, and he was afraid that with so much peace, his armies would no longer be effective. There was nobody attacking the country, and therefore he thought the armies are going to rust and not be effective. So he decided to divide his own army into two parts, the blue army and the red army. So he separated them just for practice. They said that you practice fighting with each other so that you remain an effective army. But lest people think there is real war going on, he put a big wall around them made of wooden planks. So the wooden planks created a wall, but when wooden planks are put together, some chinks are left in the middle. So some chinks were left, little openings were left, and people, when they heard great shouts of war inside, they could not see what was happening. They could only peep through those little chinks. So when they peeped through the chink, it was such an interesting show going on. They thought it's real war, and therefore they would not go anywhere except stick to those little chinks. So the king didn't know how to pull them away. The parents of the children would call them back. Come back home, it's time for lunch. No, mama, no, dad, we can't come back, we are watching something. So they were so attached to those little chinks through which they were seeing an artificial war, that the Swamiji explained to me, this is our state. Through the eyes of these chinks and the sense perceptions, we are looking at the interesting drama and become so interesting, so absorbing, we forget that our own parents are calling us back, we have forgotten our home, and we don't go back. So how do we explain to somebody that what you are seeing outside is not real, it's a shadow. It's a shadow being cast by the reality inside. And it's not only a one stage shadow, it's a shadow being cast through 3 screens. And therefore, you have to pierce through these 3 screens to find out your true home. So in the midst of this, while this is going on, somebody who is aware that it is only a war, the king himself, who knows that this is just a mock war, is not real, the show is not real, he dresses up like anybody else. He just comes and talks to them and tells one by one, the people whom he wants to call home, look, this is not real. This red army and this blue army has been created by the king. The fighting is not real. It looks real, just to keep you tied down here to watching through the chinks. And gradually, he is able to take many of those people back home by explaining to them this is not real, because he was the king himself in disguise. The Swamiji explained, perfect living masters who come here, they dress up like us. There is a word in Punjabi called Berupiya. Berupiya means people in disguise. So they come in disguise as Berupiyas. I must mention that Berupiya at one time was an entertainer in India. And some entertainers would come and dress up in a different form. Sometimes they would dress up like a warrior, sometimes they would dress up like a monk. And if we could guess that they were Berupiya, we had to pay them only 5 rupees. But if we did not guess, took them seriously, then they demanded 50 rupees. So it was their art to hide themselves so cleverly that we could not know who they are and they could charge a higher price. Now I remember an incident myself. I was in college and my father was teaching in Hoshiarpur in the government college there, and one day a police inspector came. He said, I want to check you, there is some challan against you, some complaint has been made, and we got very serious. So he said 50 rupees. Then we discovered that the 50 rupees were not for the challan, but that we could not find out he was not a police officer, that he was just a Berupiya. He's just a man in disguise. So sometimes he would come as a yogi in saffron colored robes and say, we are going to the Himalayas, so give us some alms. And we would say, okay, if we didn't guess that these are Berupiya, 50 rupees. Otherwise, he said, no, you are the same Berupiya, 5 rupees. One day, my father and I had to go to a Hakim, a doctor. And the doctor lived in an area which passed through a red light district. Some of you may know red light district is the area where the prostitutes are there. So we had to pass through that. While we were walking, one woman grabbed my arm and said, oh, I am glad to see you again. And I said, I have never seen her before. And my father said, no, young people get into these things, don't worry. I said, no, Dad, I have never seen this woman before. So anyway, I felt very bad. We came home. Next day, that man came, he said, 50 rupees. For what? For being that woman yesterday. So the Berupiyas were entertaining us. And the mystics say that perfect living masters come as Berupiyas. They come as Berupiyas because they not only come to befriend us, to make love and devotion a reality, but they come to entertain and make us happy too. Their role is manifold. The main role is to see that we can feel love and devotion in our hearts.